Hey guys, and welcome to the Igloo, and today we're going to be showing off the two-shot explosive mini and how it can be a viable source in your arsenal if you have that available, whether you get it in a Reddit trade or you get it on an actual drop or you find a version of an explosive minigun and you would like to still use it. Personally, I have the two-shot explosive mini, so these are the results that you're going to see. So going over the stats, the regular has a 273 bullets fire rate with a 151 damage. Then you have for the prime version, which is also the same fire rate, but with 156 damage with bonus damage to scorched. The tri-barrel has a 177 fire rate with a damage of 156. Like the prime, except for with less the fire rate. That means you have less rounds going down range and it becomes less effective. If you're going to be putting a tri-barrel or something of that caliber on, I would highly suggest not be using this type of weapon. For this weapon, the best kind of barrel is actually called the accelerated barrel. And personally, it has a fire rate of 314 with the damage of 151. So because you have an accelerated damage that would be over the yield, you can actually put more damage downrange, your better DPS. So because this has a better DPS, you can actually have it to be extremely effective. Now, I'm going to compare this slightly to the Gatling gun concurrently and the 50 cal. So, the Gatling gun portion of this is that it uses the same ammo type. But here's the other thing. It is the best category of this weapon for the Gatling. The other combinations that are really good with this kind of combination is Furious Explosive and Bloodied Explosive. Very expensive ammo when it comes to especially priming it. Now here's the advantages to when you're actually doing queen killing. The advantage is that you actually have a high chance of disposing all the mobs that are within the area with the two-shot explosive mini or any type of explosive mini, because it covers a wide range, and especially if you have marsupial, all you have to do is wind it up, jump, and shoot down and carpet bomb the whole area, making the area pretty much ineffective for most mobs so that the rest of your team or the rest of the server can actually play. Of course, you have to also be within pacifist mode so that you don't improperly engage upon somebody or shoot upon somebody's pace that they would sometimes put there because they watched it from a YouTube video, so they think that putting a base there would actually be viable. No, it's actually very viable to get somebody's bounty up that would be right next to doing the queen more than anything else. The big disadvantages is that it averages around 1.5 seconds in order for you to properly spin up before it actually shoots the first round. Now, a lot can happen within that time frame. You can get hit, you can die, you can have somebody step in front of you. You have a lot of different iterations where it can become a hindrance rather than an advantage. Now, compared to the 50 cal, it fires instantly, which makes it much more effective in this regard. Having instantaneous fire is one of the best things that you can properly do, especially when you're going around killing mobs, getting anything else done, and making sure that you can actually have a lot of things done in the process. Personally, that's why I like the 50 cal more than the Gatling, but the Gatling has better DPS and DPI effects. So getting into that, it's also having a very clunky design. Because the design feels so heavy and because of the 1.5 second spin up time, you have a very ridiculous amount of just overall travel. The other thing that ties into this is the spread of the weapon. Because if you are hip firing this, or you even have the perk on that's in intelligence in order for you to actually have better accuracy, even when aiming down sights, the spread is incredibly crazy. And it is just not worth your time when you're going through all this, and it's just completely and utterly destroying your ammo, especially for the 5mm category. This, again, I would not recommend priming this weapon because you would be going through so much ammo. So, because of the prime, it only has 180 per 180. Now, the better counterpart, as I should say, is the Gatling gun. The Gatling gun has more DPS, especially with a few cards to actually make it promoted. So if you have this option, if you had the option between the Gatling gun or the minigun explosive, you would go with the Gatling, because even though it has that slow fire rate, it actually has more damage to that equivalent bullets than it does the mini counterparts. Now, I'm not saying that it cannot be used wrongfully in most different ways, especially in these types of regards, but you should highly recommend only be using this kind of mini, especially if you're going to be doing crowd control with mobs. If you are not doing crowd control with mobs in one way, shape, or form, I would not be using this type of weapon. Same thing with tagging. Like, if you go to White Springs and you want to tag like as many things as possible, like, you have a low DPS weapon, especially when it comes to damage categories, so that you can also have your friends tag everything that you need, and then you just spray the crowd when you bring out all the glowing ghouls, so that you have all that tag initially available for you in the first regard. And I would only just spray it for probably like maybe 0.5, maybe 1 seconds to make sure that you properly get everything tagged before somebody with a better DPS weapon or something like that can actually kill all the rest of the ghouls inside White Springs, especially when you're nuking that. I don't know if they fixed the nukes themselves right now, but that is pretty much my assessment. In PvP, I would not at all recommend this type of weapon in PvP. This is a garbage weapon when it comes to PvP, as first stated, the 1.5 seconds, and for also just the overall damage is just not enough. So if you're versing somebody in a Assassin Sentinel build, I mean, it's going to cheat through the AP, and he could probably get one-shotted after like 6-7 shots or something like that. But most people will not use this type of weapon because of how expensive it is when it comes to ammo capacity and everything else. Now, don't get me wrong. People will use this type of weapon in PvP. It's just not optimal. What I prefer as an optimal weapon for PvP is the Gatling itself, the handmade itself, or a variety of melee weapons themselves, especially if you can get them to stagger. Another good one that's good for PvP is also a shotgun. Shotguns are really good because they offer stagger. That means those Assassin Sentinel builds cannot actually withstand as much unless they have the modifications on for their concurrent weapons and or armor, so they can reduce stagger as much as they possibly can. But that is another thing when it comes to those categories. Final thoughts that I have for this weapon. My final thought for this weapon is that it is a okay weapon for you to have. It has a tremendously expensive upkeep, especially for this kind of regard. When you are trying to do queen killing, you're going to burn through thousands of rounds. If you just want to get rid of ammo, this is a great weapon to get rid of ammo no matter what you have. And you're just going to be going and chewing through everything else. But there are better weapons out there. You don't need to have all the Pokemon in order for you to actually play the game. Like, this is one of those weapons where I like it. It's pretty good. But is it the best? No. Like, especially if you're going to go for the fire rate and everything else, I would recommend a 2-shot explosive, like Gatling laser, in that kind of regard, and not the Gatling. I mean, not the Gatling. The Mini itself. The Mini is one of those things where, again, I would just not recommend at all. And personally, like, I don't personally use it. I only got this to cover this video so that I can give it back to this fellow that gave it back to me. Again, a good person out there. He gives me a lot of other things so that I can actually do proper testing for you. And then I give him back his weapons because, I mean, he's a really good guy. Dev, thank you again. If you guys like this kind of videos and kind of setups about in-depth analysis between like fire rates, DPS, and making sure that you have the advantages and disadvantages of each weapon, please leave a like, leave a comment down below, especially for what would you like to see as the next weapon that I would completely analyze when it comes to DPS, focus firing, making sure everything else is. But again, this is my personal take on this kind of video, and have a good one, guys.